Hello, thanks for watching the webinar today. My name is Jeff. I'm an EPDM specialist with MCAD Technologies. I do installation, training, and tech support for Enterprise PDM, as well as Workgroup PDM and some of our other products. And today we'll be looking at, as you may know, Workgroup to Enterprise PDM. Why switch? So let's look first of all at PDM needs, typical needs. These include things like being able to do revisions, control permissions to various files, have secure access to files in general, but in the vault also, just as a general thing. And also collaboration between users, different people being able to access the files and see what's happening. And really, Workgroup or Enterprise can both do these things. Which brings us to our question. Why the switch? Why not just stay on Workgroup? Well, I like to think of it like looking at the options between two different bicycles. Maybe for you, you're more of a car guy, more of a bike guy, so this is kind of how I look at it. But let's take a couple of these things, just a couple of mountain bikes. Both have the basic needs that we'd say for mountain bikes. Got the knobby tires, got a nice strong frame, got our handbrakes, we have good control. But the bike on the right is going to take those aspects and just do them better. We'll have a carbon frame to make it still strong but lighter. Keep those knobby tires, but now I'll make them tubeless, so they're going to be faster and lighter. And then disc brakes give us even better control, better stopping power. Then let's take and add something that doesn't exist at all on the bike on the left. We'll add full suspension. So we take these improvements and we take some things that are totally new. What do we end up with? Overall, it's better control on the bike. It's a faster bike. It's lighter. This all makes it easier to ride. Everything's working better and you're doing less work to get where you want to go. And you've got more flexibility. This is going to be able to handle a wider variety of terrain. So you can take it on flats, you can take it on bumps, steep, smooth, a lot of different things. So that's bikes, but is that going to relate to PDM software? You may have guessed that the answer is yes. So with Enterprise PDM, by improving some aspects and adding some brand new features, you'll end up with better control of files, faster access to information. You'll have easier collaboration between different members of your group and different groups within your company, and a more flexible system overall, able to adapt to your needs as they change even over time. And how are we going to accomplish all this? Well, let's look at a few aspects, a few of the things that are going to make this possible, the ways the EPDM improves on what's already in Workgroup PDM. So let's look first of all at number of users. Workgroup PDM, the recommendation is 1 to 5 users. That's really what it's built for. Some of you may have more users than that, or at least, or a company that has more users than that, which is true. And it doesn't stop working after 5, but that's where it's designed to work. That's where its performance is. And as you go beyond that, you're going to see decreased performance overall. Enterprise PDM, on the other hand, is designed for a much larger range of users. And this starts at even a single user. One person can use this to keep revision control and some of these other things. But because the architecture is built on SQL, some of the other things they've done, it'll work well into the hundreds of users. I put 500 plus on here. We actually do have customers with more users than that. And the SQL keeps things efficient, makes searches fast, makes getting information out nice and fast. The interface for the two. With Workgroup PDM, you have to go through some sort of SolidWorks software to get to your Vault. This could be SolidWorks Explorer, maybe the Vault admin tool, or just the SolidWorks design software itself, which works, but it just means there's something else that you have to go into, even if you just want to look at files. Enterprise PDM is using Windows Explorer integration. So this is nice because it is a tool that people use every day, and we start talking about collaboration especially. Not everybody is a SOLIDWORKS user. Not everybody has that software installed, but they can with ePDM, they can just access things right through their normal file interface that they would use, the Windows Explorer. How about file types? Workgroup PDM, again, is designed for SOLIDWORKS files only. With an asterisk, you know that you can check in other file types to Workgroup PDM, but if you've done that, you also know that it doesn't do a good job of really managing them overall. You can check in and you can check out, and you can update them, but it doesn't work very smoothly. It's a little cumbersome to do that, and if you were trying to do a large number of non-SOLIDWORKS files, you could spend a lot of time just trying to manage those, get them in and out. ePDM is designed for any Windows file. Anything you can save on your computer, you can check in and revision manage with Enterprise PDM. And this is, it's especially designed for CAD files. That's true. What that means is it takes, that management for any file and it adds some things on top of it. Specifically, the understanding of file references. CAD files are a bit different that way. Parents and children, pardon me. And so it adds that in there as well. So it does a good job of managing all those file types. Let's take a look. Let's take a break briefly from the PowerPoint. Let's look actually at Enterprise and how the Windows integration and the support for multiple file types can impact you, and how this is going to do those things I said: better control, faster, easier, etc. So here I am in Windows Explorer looking at my vault. Now I can go to a regular Windows folder over here in my regular browsing method. But when I click on one of these folders with the fancy icon, then I'm actually looking into a vault and I get some different menu items and some informational cards down here. So because I'm in Windows Explorer, I can navigate the way that I'm used to, just clicking through my folders. No big deal. Let me go back up using my tree, and all my addressing here is the same for Windows. And then when I get to a file that I like, I can start using the Enterprise PDM added functionality to start getting information for this file. So one of the first things you can see is this data card. This is a collection of the metadata that I want to make easily visible for this file. Different file types, I'm looking at PDF, but different file types can have different data cards because they may have different pieces of information that are important to them. So this is adding on to the functionality of Windows Explorer, giving you that fast access to information that I mentioned. So here we are in a part card, or a part file with another unique file card. You also get information on what version you're looking at. For files that have bills of materials, which we'll look at a little bit later, you can get the bill of materials view right here, not even having to leave Windows Explorer. You can also see the contains and where used information for the file, again, right up here in front and easy to get to. There's also a preview window. We did have a preview window in Workgroup PDM, but again, this is right here in our easy Windows interface, and this is a live preview, which will allow us to manipulate our SOLIDWORKS files in eDrawings. So again, for those who don't have SOLIDWORKS, they're still getting good access to all the information, not just a static picture. But this previewer works for other things as well. I can look at DWG files. I can preview an Excel file and go back to that PDF file and look at that. So it's over 250 built-in viewers to give you that information right up front. And if you have a piece of software that's generating files and you want to save them in the vault, if a viewer for that software is not natively supported, but there is a free viewer out there, you can actually link that viewer to Enterprise PDM. So again, people don't have to have the full bore package installed just to be able to view the files. So this is part of the integration, part of the really good stuff about integration with Windows and the different support that you're going to get for all these, again, any file type you want to check in here. And I mentioned that this does a better job of really fully managing the files, by which I mean if I need to check files in and out, I can do that right from here. You know, it's not the workgroup check in from disk and then go browse to figure out where that file exists on the hard drive in order to be able to check it in. It's all one view. I'm viewing my vault, and I'm also viewing the actual file location. So this makes it easy just to manage everything really in the same way. Now, because this is, again, some of the other good parts about this being Windows Explorer is you can do things quite a bit more quickly than you could do in SOLIDWORKS or even in Workgroup. One of these things that I always encountered was having to rename files. So I'm going to go to this assembly file. I'm going to look in the Contains tab so we can see all the file references for this. And here's one that's called door2. Now, there's not another door, so having a door2 is a little silly. I'm just going to fix that file name. So I'm going to click on it here and do a standard Windows file rename. That's been updated, but what about my references? Well, let me look at assembly file, and here it's been updated in that assembly as well. And when I open this up, that would be updated in the find file references in the assembly itself. So that's part of the added enhancement that Enterprise PDM does, keeping track of those references for you and controlling them in the files. So very convenient. If you need to do more than just rename, you can go a step further. I can actually move this door into a different folder if I need to. Oops, there's the paste command there. So there's my door. Let me click on this, and if I go to where used and look at it from this direction, it still knows that it's used in that drawing and the CCO and the assembly, all that good stuff. So it hasn't lost any of that. And then I can quickly go to this file and look back the other direction to find that here's my door file. And while lots of the other references are being referenced within this design data folder, here's my door, just one folder up. So it again has captured that move. Very, very useful, big time saver, and one of the things I actually like the best about Enterprise PDM. Saves me a lot of time, a lot of headache. All right, let's go back and talk about some of the other improvements that we've seen. So workflows, this is a big deal in Enterprise PDM. It exists in Workgroup PDM. It's called Lifecycle. However, it is a little bit limited in its capabilities in Workgroup. You pretty much have, or not pretty much, you do have one single lifecycle that has to be used for the entire vault. And the control that you have over that lifecycle is pretty limited, or you kind of have to turn off the control and let it be a free-for-all. That is, a user is going to decide what the next state should be for the file. In Enterprise PDM, you can customize them, highly customizable workflows, and multiple workflows are allowed within a single vault. So if you wanted to send ECO documents down one workflow and SOLIDWORKS files down another workflow, you can do that. You can have a third one for PDF files, kind of whatever you need, actually. There's no limits to how many workflows you can have or what can be inside of them. So again, we'll break away from the PowerPoint so we can take a look, get a visual on that, because that'll make it a little bit easier to understand, I think. So I'm going to get into my vault here. And before I go too far, you can also see that I have a number of vaults, which is something else that can be done with Enterprise PDM. If you have different types of projects or different business groups, go ahead and you can make some different vaults so that they are keeping their work separate if that's important. So let's look at just what I mean by kind of a limited work group. Now I'm actually looking at this in the Enterprise PDM tool, but it's a good way to visualize what's going on. So if we're doing a work group lifecycle, for each state we can, if we want to automate it or control it, we can tell it for each state what the next state is it should go to. And it can go forward or it can go backward. And really that's it. You can combine those, obviously, so each of these can go forward to the next one, and then if necessary it'll go back to the start again. So that's kind of a controlled workflow. If you didn't have any controls on your individual states, then from each state you could go to any other state. So I've got a number of exits here from this one, allowing me to go to any 1, 2, 3 other states. Now one could combine this, so perhaps from here it would be a free-for-all, but when you came in as pending approval state, it would only be allowed to go to the very next state, for example. So there's some ways to combine that. I don't want to get too much into the weeds of all the different permutations that we could do here. But that's the idea, is that either you can go to one other state or you can go to any other state. Now, let's look instead at an Enterprise PDM workflow. So here's one where my initial state can move to exactly one other state. However, in my next state I could move to one of 2 other states. Once I'm in released, I have actually 3 options for where I can go. And if I ever end up in obsolete, I have no options for how to get out of that one. So at every state you have full flexibility to add or remove as many transitions as you need to, and that can get up to something entirely ridiculous like this. But some customers have a need for lots of control. So here's a state with only 1 exit and no inlets, and here's one that has 6 inlets and 3 outlets. So a lot of variety there. Combine these things wherever you need to work for your business, and they can be changed as time goes along, as your products change, your teams change, your processes change, anything like that. And as I mentioned, multiple workflows allowed within a vault, and so we went to the very complex, but we can also have the very simple. Do what you need to do for your file management. Extremely customizable. So that's what that means when I say that. All right. Next item is permissions. You can set permissions in Workgroup PDM, but the only 2 permissions you have are read-only and read-write. And then there's the option to be an administrator as well, but that's kind of its own special thing, just like it is in Enterprise PDM. However, in ePDM, there are over 40 permissions that you can set outside of the administrative permissions. And it's very granular how you can apply these. It's definitely not an all or nothing type of proposition. In Workgroup, those permissions can be set either at the project level or within each stage of the life cycle. In an Enterprise, you have those 2 options, project or folders, because we're in Windows Explorer, workflow, or you have other ways to set permissions just in groups. Let's take a quick look at the permissions. I say there's over 40 permissions, but are they useful? Are they repeats? What do we mean by that? So here's just a number of the options for folder permissions. So we have our kind of our basic. Here's read file contents. Here's when we need to be able to check out a file, to basically write to a file. But then we add on to that, maybe you can check it out, but you can't delete it, or you can delete, but you can't destroy. Maybe you can't do any of those things, but you're allowed to move it if you need to. Maybe move a folder, move a file. There are options for bills and materials, and can you even add a file to this folder? And then on top of that, we have permissions in all the states in the workflow. So these have some similar things that we just saw: deleting and moving, reading files, checking out. And then some things that are going to exist, just in the state itself. But again, so these permissions combine with the permissions at the folder level to make a very flexible system. Way more permutations than I wanted to calculate for this demo, but highly flexible. So this is giving you that control over your files that we talked about. Then searching, another big area to look at the differences between the 2. Workgroup PDM has a search. It has a simple search or a complex. Put things together, ands and ors, lots of logic, look at different properties. But when you look for the results, it just shows you file by file. This file, meets your criteria. Then we move to the next one, and then to the next one. So kind of slow to get the results and to really find what you need. Enterprise PDM, on the other hand, uses SQL searching. So after you hit the search button, it pumps out a results list, and it creates it very quickly. So from the results, you can then filter it down as you need to, and actually just let's take a look at it. It'll be much easier than me trying to explain what you get out of it. So I'm going to start here at just the top level of our vault. I'm going to open a big search card, and I'm going to search for every SOLIDWORKS part file that I've got in this vault. So did that. So we've gone down here, found 1,900 files in less than a second, so that's pretty good. And now, if I don't want to be scrolling through here, I can start to do things to refine this. So because we're in Windows Explorer, I could sort by different columns if that's going to help me, maybe some dates. But I've also got other information from Enterprise PDM I can use to narrow this down. So let me say that I just want to find files that are in the work in process state. I do that, search again. All right, I've gotten rid of a fair number of them. And I see that some of these are checked out, so I don't want to be messing with files that someone else has checked out, so let me just close that. And now I've gotten rid of those, and I've got a pretty good list that I can then pick from. And once again, I've got all my informational tabs down here at the bottom, so I could scroll through these pretty quick and look at the information for each one. And again, using previews, all these good things are available from this search, so it makes it really easy. Now let's talk about some of the extra things, the things that Enterprise added on that you don't get in Workgroup at all. Approvals. For Workgroup, the answer is just no. Enterprise PDM, they're optional, which is always nice, and you'd put those in the workflow so that they just become part of that process. As a file moves from work in process to approved, you can require that someone goes in there and signs that off if you need to. For versions, the answer for Workgroup is no, but what I mean here is it's only revisions. So once you've defined your revision scheme, when you check in a file, it wants to go through that scheme. So the file's A, and it's B, and it's C, and so on. Now, you can use the working versions. However, you know that when you do that, you just end up overwriting that working version each time. So if you go from A, do working versions all the way until you release, you don't have any of that history in between. All that's in your vault and your record is A to B. Enterprise PDM introduces this concept of versions. So every time you check in, you create a version, and you can keep that history. You can always roll back to all those different versions. And the revision is not applied until a specified point in the workflow when you say it's time to apply that. So that allows you to keep all the history, be able to roll back and forth between different versions to make your work more efficient, but at the same time not run through all of your revisions and not have one first release at A and the next release at F, those kind of things. Automation. Workgroup will link the properties from the vault to the properties in the file, and that's good for things like drawing, the face of the drawing, the title blocks, the things like that. Enterprise PDM will do that as well. But on top of that, it adds templates for creating things that maybe you do a lot, maybe certain types of files or certain folder structures even. You can set up a template to recreate those with the click of a button. And file exporting, so sending out things like PDFs or DXFs or steps, all these kind of things can get generated automatically once a file is released. And then finally, notifications. Nothing like that in Workgroup, but in ePDM, this is again optional in the workflow, or you can do it manually for a particular file. And what this does is it sends notification to a user when certain activities have happened. A file has changed states, for example, it's been moved into editing or it's been moved to release. So I'm going to do a quick demo. We've talked about this. We've kind of shown some screenshots, but how does this relate to how's this going to really look for your workflow? So I'm going to go through just a little process that, I don't know, I'm not going to call it typical, but something that you may need to do, or a combination of things that you may find yourself doing. So I'm going to log in as a designer, and I'm going to start by just making a new ECO. There's some sort of change that needs to take place. So I'm going to use my template function here to create myself a new ECO Word document. It's going to automatically number it for me. It's going to pull my name into here and the date that it was created. So when I do that, now I've got that file right in my vault. And when I open this, we can see that it didn't just show the information in the data card, it's actually pushed the information into the file. So very fast way to capture information, a consistent way to capture information, and to get that into the vault so that I can do some other work and not have to worry about generating Word documents. And let's go find, I know what file I want to modify. So what I'm going to do is look for it, and I want to actually make it part of, I want to attach it to that ECO so they're referenced and they're going to be together, and people can find that information nice and easily. So here's the two files I want. Currently they're released, but I'm going to go ahead and say that they need to be changed. I need to enter a comment for this. I'm glad it reminded me. So one for what's going to happen to the file, and one for the person that's going to get notified, just to give them a little information. So now they're in a work in process state. Now they're ready to be actually modified. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy these, close my search tool. I'm going to paste those actually right on top of my Word document. And now when I check in this file, you'll see that it's grabbing those as references, and there's my warning again to enter a comment. So more control that you can have over the way that files are managed. I'm just going to pretend I'm adding a screw to this thing. And now I've actually created, like I said, a bill of materials for my Word document. And I can see that in the BOM or in the Contains tab, and it's going to have the information in there for me. So now when I do things with these files, they'll actually all go together. So I'm going to submit this ECO for approval, and at the same time, get that down where it's visible. At the same time, I could submit the SOLIDWORKS files as well. So again, here's what I'm saying I'm going to do this file, and I haven't actually made any changes to the file, to the SOLIDWORKS files. I'm sure you've noticed that, but even so, we can push this through the approval process to see what that looks like. Let me go, I'm going to browse to this SOLIDWORKS part file now. There it is, it highlights it for me, and it's in this pending approval state. Now that it's here, I actually can no longer check it out, because that's some of that granular control of the permissions that we talked about. So I was able to change state, send it for approval. I can read it, but I can't do anything about it. And there'd be a number of other things that would be like that because it's in this pending approval state. Now let's go find, let's go log in here as another user, somebody who would might be interested in files that are being modified and are waiting for approval. I'm going to log in as a manager. And when I do that, what I want to know maybe on a daily basis is what are things that are needing my attention. So I can come in here. If I haven't gotten the notification set up, what I can do is just set up some search favorites. So files that are in ECO under review, I can just have that set up as something that I come in here and quickly click on, and there's that file that that just got sent in. And again, I can view a bunch of information about it here. And that showed me the Word doc, but I could do a search for files in pending approval. And because the Word documents and the SOLIDWORKS files go through different workflows, they're actually in different states. So anyway, seeing some of the flexibility here for how these files can go through. So a couple different ways to find the information in which I'm interested. Now I'm going to go back to my ECO because that's what I'm going to use as my controlling document. And now I can go ahead and I can approve this document and the SOLIDWORKS files as well. Give some kudos to the designer. And a password here required. This is optional, but I can put that in for another layer of authentication before approvals are done. And so now this moves through. Now we're in the final state, ECO approved. And again, these are showing up. I can go browse these files. And the nice thing is that with the where used, we can look back the other way too and see. Sorry, it needs to access another part of my, another vault of mine to get some information. That's not typical, FYI. But I can click on this part file, and it'll show me other ECOs that this has been part of. So a nice way to, again, kind of tie all that ECO information together. So, there was, some use of multiple document formats in that. I did a lot of the work within Windows Explorer, as you saw. I didn't have to get out of this really at all, just to push all those things through, do the approvals. And then the other thing we can look at here is some of the changes that we did to the document itself. So here's a watermark that's been changed to released to match the state here. And we've captured in the SOLIDWORKS document the approval name and date, as well as who created the file. So you can see that, like we did with the Word document, we're pushing information into the files so that they are a lot more, we get that data where we need it to so that things look right. And then let me refresh here. And in the background, while I was talking, I was also creating the PDF file. Talked about the automated file outputs. So here's a PDF for that, and also created a step file, which doesn't preview too well, but so saved me some steps and did some, but did that consistently. So now I'm not going to forget to create those generic 3D files. It's just going to do it for me. So a lot of time savers in there. So again, working faster, working easier, and still lots of good control over my files with the way that my change states, my transitions, my approvals were set up beforehand. Some other extra things don't demo quite as well, but we can talk about them. One is disk space tools. So Workgroup PDM, nothing in there to really manage your file size. As you save more revisions, you use more and more space in your hard drive. Same thing is true in Enterprise PDM by default, but we can turn on a couple of things. One is cold storage, where you can actually define how many versions you want to keep. So as time goes on, maybe you don't need to have 200 versions. You can just keep the ones that were released, for example, and you can just keep a certain number beyond that. So that can help with storage. Also, compression. The vault just in general can store information in a compressed fashion. So a couple of options there, so things don't grow too big. Multiple locations. In Workgroup, we're saying no. Again, there is a web viewer. It is designed really for use within a single network, so everyone that's at a single location. If you start using it outside of that and try to access files, from various remote locations, this is one of those things that could be done, but your performance, it's not going to be what you'd like when you're talking about trying to move SOLIDWORKS files, or really lots of files at all, across a WAN or a VPN. EPDM, though, is set up to do just that, have multiple sites, and they can be in various global locations. And let's look a little bit how that works, how it differs. So again, it does support distributed teams, and it can be even globally. And the way that it gets better performance is that the files are distributed, but the database is shared. So in each of your locations, if we pretend we have 3 locations here, we'll have what we call an archive server. That's where it's going to keep all the copies of your SOLIDWORKS files, the Word documents, etc., everything that you're modifying and checking in. So that makes it very fast to access those files from each individual location. But the database, everyone refers to the same database, and what that means is that you get real-time information about the files. Who's got it checked out? What's the latest version? What's the latest value for a particular variable? So you kind of get the best of both worlds there. And the replication can either be scheduled, so you can do it in the wee hours of the morning when traffic is low, or if you really need a file right now, you can do that on demand too. You click on a file and say you want to get the latest, and it'll pull it down across the network. So a couple of good things there. Again, good additions. You know that just moving into some newer technology. So we're back to the question: why switch? We've looked at a few things. Some things that are better, some things that are brand new. And so the questions that that I kind of think of as one is, where are you going? With your projects, with your team, with your company, and also how do you want to get there? And so, do you have as a work group the tool that's going to get you where you're going and in an efficient manner, or is it going to be better off for you to get some of these different features and be able to save yourself some time, work more efficiently, have better control over the files, make fewer mistakes, enable everybody to do the work more consistently, and be more flexible, really. A lot of these things we looked at, there were a lot of things that we can turn on and can configure, and you can start very small, actually, if you need to. There's nothing that says you have to have all those features turned on. And then as your company grows or needs change, then we can add more things in there. So some good options. Again, really, no matter what the size of your company is. So if you have any questions, please contact us. You can either go to our website, you can call us, you can even email me directly, and I can either answer your questions or put you in touch with the sales guy. We'd definitely love to talk to you more, possibly come out to do a demo if you want to get even more information and ask some real specific questions about your needs and your facility, and we can talk about what we can do for you. So thank you for your attention. Hope you learned some good things, and we hope to hear from you soon.